Hey, I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 88. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug my own author's website at www.chrismaldon.com. I am an aspiring author specializing in the fantasy genre, and you can support me and my journey of being an author by buying my first novel, an action adventure, fancy action adventure called The Mustard Prince and the Condiment Kingdom for $8.95 at www.chrismondon.com or at amazon.com as well. Um, Also on my website, you can check out free short stories, other stories, mainly short story collections for sale, um, blogs, which are updated weekly, and a Writer's Talk web series, which is me talking everything writing. So, onto this card. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very disappointed with the way I picked. I only got half of them right overall. Happy I got the Stevens pick right. He was an underdog, and a Larkin pick right, which is cool. Um, Otherwise, some of these in hindsight were pretty obvious. I'm a bit disappointed in myself, to be honest, that I didn't pick guys like Story to beat Safadine. I remember like the Tyron Woodley fight, pin him against a cage, try and take him down, pin him against a cage. That's how you beat Safadine. That's what Rick Story does. Kamosi versus Miranda, I mean, volume Kamosi all the way, and he's got a really good chin. This guy's like impossible to knock out. Picking Miranda here, big mistake. Changed my pick from Eric Koch to Campbell. I was originally going to pick Eric Koch. Then I went with Campbell. Eric Koch chokes him out. Even Collier versus Uda. So I got some egregious picks here, man. It's like Uda only has a clinch game. He doesn't even have a great top game. He has a good bottom game, but not even a great top game. He has a clinch. Collier, for all his faults, wrestles and fights along. So yeah, this is not a good not a good look for me as far as picking fights and knowing fighters, because this is good. That's a reflection of me knowing fighters, and I should know better. Um, so yeah, and because of that, I got 6 out of 12 when I could have easily gotten. I probably wouldn't have ever picked Caraway over Sterling, despite the fact that like I kept saying in the comments and stuff, it's a bad stylistic matchup for Sterling. Um, I don't know if I'd pick Garbrandt to beat Almeida. And yes, in the predictions video, I did say to hedge a bit. Almeida is one of the most terrible, like first round slow starters ever. I mean, this guy is just terrible in the first round. Um, so I don't know if I'd pick those two, but yeah, these other guys, I should have at least picked one of these other four picks that were a bit more obvious in hindsight. So pretty disappointed in myself, to be honest with you. Bonuses: Garbrandt and Collier earned performance of the night, while Stevens versus Barao took home fight of the night. I really liked Larkin versus Masvidal actually a lot better. I kind of wish that one got fight of the night because that was both technical and action packed. Um, Stevens versus Barao was actually pretty technical, but not to that level of Larkin versus Masvidal. One thing to note: uh, Brazilian fighters went 0-4. Yeah, Uda lost. Um, who else lost? Miranda, he lost. Renan Barao and Tomas Almeida. Yeah, so yeah, Brazilian fighters 0-4. Let's just recap the card. Cody Garbrandt defeated Tomas Almeida by knockout in the first round. I said it in the predictions, and it really showed itself here, reared its ugly head here. But Almeida is a really terrible slow starter. I mean, his first rounds are bad. The like Brad Pickett almost finished him, but even on the regional scene, he had a lot of really bad first rounds. I mean, he just doesn't throw a lot. He doesn't really settle in to fight until like he gets hit, comes back, and is able to throw his. And then in the later rounds, he actually gets stronger. The biggest problem is Garbrandt is powerful. His hands are fast. He's got a good chin, and he's ultra aggressive. He's not going to stop. And Almeida got finished here. You know, really not the greatest look for Almeida because Almeida's really curving that line right now between like he's a top 10 talent and most likely a future title contender, but he can also top out as a high level action fighter as well. You know, where he'll have fun fights, but his weaknesses really show itself. And maybe in that case, a title shot might not happen for him for a while. It's very similar to Donald Cerrone, to be honest with you. Look at Cerrone. I mean, he got the title shot, but it's just kind of, his way there was pretty tough. I mean, he was actually in Michael Bisping territory for a while, where it's like he'd fight like the top 10 guy like Nate Diaz, Rafael Dos Anjos when he wasn't champion, or someone else, lose, climb back up, lose. And I mean, eventually he beat, or, he made it to a title shot, but it was a while. And he's also a slow starter. Um, and it's cost him. Funny enough, his slow starting actually contributed to him losing both the Dos Anjos fights, actually. And so in a sense, Almeida might actually be in that Donald Cerrone territory, where it's just kind of like because he's a fun action fighter, people want to watch him fight, and he has cool finishes and a fun fighting style. But he also has these holes in his game that do tend to get exploited. And that might make it really hard for him to progressively climb the ladder. He might win, like even now, he loses to Garbrandt. He might win two or three, and then he'll fight that one guy that will take advantage of that. Then he's back down the ladder again, and then he goes back up and down, and eventually, I get, I can maybe see that with Almeida. I really can. Like I said, he'll probably get a title shot though. Garbrandt though, everything's just good with him. What can you say? Fast hands, good boxing. He's something too much of a headhunter though. I think that's one of his only problems. Very aggressive, fun style fighting, powerful, um, young. Still has room for improvement. A lot to like with Garbrandt here. I think Garbrandt, he's gonna have to fight some top level guys now. More top level guys, excuse me, because Almeida was ranked. Garbrandt, winner of Lineker versus McDonald, maybe John Dodson next. With Almeida, maybe the loser of Lineker versus McDonald, maybe Aljamain Sterling. Or if they want to kind of get him out of the top 10 and closer to the top, around 11 to 15s, Frankie Saenz, you can give him something like that too. Next fight up, that's Jeremy Stephens defeated Renan Barao by unanimous decision. That first round from Barao was really strong. He was fighting in the way that Jeremy Stephens loses to. Barao was moving real well. He was fast. He was in. He was out. He moved, mixing takedowns every once in a while to keep him honest. Yeah, it was that first round. I was like, oh, Barao's got this. And I thought he looked reinvigorated. I thought it's like, wow, this is, maybe the weight cut made him slower. Maybe that's why he's plodding. Maybe that's why his chin isn't as good, stuff like that. Second round comes around. Stevens hits him hard, and Burrell is flat-footed, moving backwards a lot more. Chin actually held up pretty well, all things considered. Um, it might be it. There's a case of a guy who has a good chin but doesn't take a good punch. Like Brock Lesnar was like that. He actually had a decent chin. He wouldn't get like knocked out cold. He just couldn't take a punch well, or he couldn't. He didn't react well to taking punches. Burrell's kind of there. It's not like he has a bad chin per se. Even Dillashaw had to take like 4 or 5 rounds of just chipping away at him to finally put him away. But he doesn't take a hit well, and he was taking some uppercuts that have, defeated champions. Like honestly, like Stevens beat Rafael Dos Anjos. Yeah, it's real early, and it's like Dos Anjos is what first fought in the UFC, but that uppercut has ended, you know, the nights of many fighters, including Rafael Dos Anjos. So, and once, yeah, Burrell got hit hard and he got hit a lot, he just wasn't the same. Third was a little better, but like Burrell was getting some shots in, but Stevens seems to get into harder shots. He also didn't really seem to be hurting Stevens that much, even though he was landing cleanly, which was also another thing I was kind of worried about with Burrell moving up. He's not the most powerful striker, whereas Stevens is. Like that's the thing for the division, outside of what like Conor McGregor and a very short list of featherweights. Stevens is probably one of the, if not the hardest hitter at featherweight. You know, um, and I kind of thought that would play a factor, and it did. Stevens hits Burrell. Burrell really feels it. Burrell hits Stevens, and Stevens still plugs forward. You know, um, good takedown defense from Stevens. Burrell, I, I'm really glad I got this one right because I also, because like there's a lot in this fight that I saw that just favored Stevens. Like Burrell isn't a great wrestler. He can take fights to the ground, but he's not a great wrestler. Stevens has a takedown defense to thwart a lot of Burrell's takedowns. So with that said, I mean Burrell though, I think he should stay at featherweight. I think for his first fight in featherweight, he got a really tall order. Um, And dude, he took the first round quite definitively from Stevens and was doing really well. If he can fight that way for another round, it would have been all Burrell. You need to move around Stevens to beat him. With that said, Stevens looking through the rankings list, he's actually fought most of the top 10 competition. He's beaten some like Bermudez, lost to guys like Oliveira and Cub Swanson. He hasn't fought Edgar or Aldo. He hasn't fought Ricardo Lamas. He's fought Holloway. He hasn't fought Chad Mendes. A lot of these guys are coming off losses though, so it's really hard to say who he should fight next. I know Lamas is fighting Holloway, so Lamas versus Stevens is a cool fight, win or lose for Lamas. I suppose a loser of Aldo versus Edgar works for him. Um, or maybe he can just get some up and comer, you know? Like what, Rashad Bektik or something like that? I don't know. Some really good up and comer, I suppose. But if you want, yeah, as far as people above him in the ladder, he's fought most of them. Henan Burrell, I think he needs some sort of tune-up fight. He needs a fight to really get him back in the winning ways. I think his confidence might be shaken. I can see that happening with him. Just want some lower to mid-tier guy of the division for him. Next fight that, Rick Story defeated Tarek Safdien by unanimous decision. Um, like I said, real egregious pick on my part. I've seen Safadine lose to this style of fighting, so I definitely should have picked better here. Guys that can pressure him up against the cage. Safadine is the type of guy that's looking for that perfect punch. That perfect kick. He finds it and it's accurate and it's clean, but it's not unless his opponent gives him the range that Safdien likes. He's not gonna find that strike many times. Hung Yu Lim's gonna leave a lot of openings. Ellenberger at this point is gonna leave a lot of openings. Story is just going to close distance. I should have known that. Um, and the other problem with Safdien too is he just played Story's game too many times during the fight. He would willingly clinch with Story. Story was beating, always able to get Safdien's back against the cage. Um, he'd just grind him a lot of times. Maybe hit the occasional body punches, but for the most part, he was able to pressure him a lot, and Safdien couldn't really keep him away. Also, the other problem with Safdien, he doesn't use his hands enough. Just doesn't. He's like too much of a kicker. And yeah, because there are times when like they're facing off, and all of a sudden it's like Safadine doesn't throw any hands. So Story would just go forward, get him up against a cage, because Safdine's not even trying to keep him at range with a jab or a straight, or cross or anything like that. Very disappointing performance from Safdine at the same time, as it just a bad stylistic matchup for him as well, and the type of fighter that generally beats him. Story is, Safdie was top 10. Now Story is probably going to be top 10. The guys above him are like, one guy that's really close to him, ranking wise, that's coming off a win is Dong Hyun Kim. I think that'd be a good fight. Story versus Dong Hyun Kim. Story versus Neil Magny would also be good too. With Safdine, maybe gets a loser of Gastelum versus Hendricks. Matt Brown Safdine would be cool. Or you can do, I would like to see Albert Tumanov versus Safdie. That'd be neat as well. Next fight after that, Chris Camozzi defeated Vitor Miranda by unanimous decision. Man, was Camozzi way better on the ground and at boxing range than Miranda. I mean, kicking range, yeah, that's all Miranda. Um, and Miranda has that really Thai style punching where it's kind of loopy. It's not, he hits hard, but like his hands aren't the greatest. It's a very big problem with a lot of Thai fighters. They're not great boxers, and they're not great at boxing range either. They just get hit there a lot of times. You can see it with like a lot of fighters. Not a lot, but there are a good amount of fighters that like Joanne Calderwood. She's primarily a Thai fighter, and she's terrible at boxing range. There's just some people that are really bad at boxing range. Miranda did not look very good in boxing range here. So impressed with Camozzi. He's like I say this all the time. Like he's not great at any one aspect of MMA. He doesn't. He's huge, but he doesn't hit hard. But he is stupid tough. I mean, this guy is stupid tough and resilient, and he's always in super game. And those are some X factors that you just can't really compute. But at the same time, too, his volume's a lot higher than Miranda's. Once again, this was quite egregious pick of mine. I was actually kind of confident in Miranda because I really liked what I was seeing from him. But, the signs were there, though. Even in his last fight against Gamarez, it took him a while, to really get anything going. It just, Gamarez pinned him up against a cage, wouldn't do anything, and Miranda eventually got the better of him. But it took him a while to really get there. And against, like, Camozzi, who's just stupid tough, you can't really, you're battling a deficit. Miranda's kind of a slow starter. And then Camozzi's a guy that's at at the very least, he's really good at picking up points, and winning rounds because he's high volume, always pushing forward. always fighting. Um, I think Kamozi's on what, a 3 fight win streak right now. It's so tough with middleweight because I guess you have to give him a top 10 guy now because he's on the win streak. But at the same time, if he fights a mid-level guy, he can lose. He can fight Brad Scott tomorrow or Sam Alvey and lose. That's how the middleweight like mid-tier of the division works. Like these mid-level guys just seem to be able to beat each other at any given night. I don't know if Kamozi's really pulling ahead of that pack too, but maybe we'll see. Maybe he gets like the win of Lombard versus Henderson. Another good fight for him. Thiago Murata Santos coming off that big win over Nate Marquardt. Murata Santos has been looking real good lately too. So I think Murata Santos versus Kamozi would be good. Vita Miranda just more lowered to. I think he's gonna be stuck in middle tier, mid level purgatory. It's it's existed all pretty much since the division began. Guys like Ed Herman. He's still there. If he didn't move up to 205, he'd still be a mid level middleweight guy. Alan Alan Belcher kind of broke out of it, kind of. But yeah, that's how middleweight works, I suppose. Next fight after that, um, Lorenz Larkin defeated Jorge Masvidal by split decision. I was fine with this decision. I actually thought that Lorenz Larkin got the first 2 rounds. I really like this fight. I thought this was a striking clinic. The way they set up some of their strikes was really good. Some of the defense and traps they'd use. Larkin would throw a jab to disguise the body kick. You'd see some sort of feint that lead to something else. I remember Larkin was throwing a bunch of weak lead kicks. They were just kind of weak. All of a sudden, there's a switch kick. That's how he got Masvidal with that switch kick in the third round. I mean, it was really cool, and Masvidal would do the same actually. Masvidal is really good in the clinch too, man. The way he can find those elbows in the clinch during, during some parts of the clinch are really not good, or were really good. Excuse me. Um, his boxing was solid, but I felt that Larkin just got the better of him by mixing it up more. You know, saw some elbows from Larkin, different types of punches, uppercuts, and whatnot. A little better head movement too, and really good kicks from Larkin as well. Masvidal got his shots in too, though. He got some good leg kicks in. He got some good punches in. I also felt that Larkin was a harder hitter. I didn't really feel that Masvidal was really hurting Larkin that much, which gave me a reason to pick Larkin as well. I thought the size difference would play a factor, and similar to Burrell Stevens, I feel it is something of a factor. I don't feel that Jorge Masvidal moving up from lightweight to welterweight, um, despite beating or knocking out Cesar Ferreira, who has a terrible chin, just terrible. I wouldn't necessarily call Masvidal something of a hard hitter, especially at that weight class. Um, with that, he could bring me wrong. I don't get that impression from him. With that said, Larkin should probably get the winner of like Cerrone versus Cote, or maybe like a Tim Means next. I don't know if you should really, because he lost to Tumanov before this, so I wonder if you should give him some of those like higher level top 15 guys yet or not. I think he's definitely well on his way. He's beaten guys like Ponzinibbio, who I'm pretty high on. And this was a good one too, or Masvidal, and he looked good. He was, his volume was good. He wasn't getting tired. His work rate was very high. His movement was good. He looked like, like an elite level striker, like for the division. Like maybe he can do something in this division type of thing. With Masvidal, just more lower to mid tier guys of the division. He should be able to beat some of those guys, but yeah, Masvidal's in a weird spot right now. Next fight after that, Paul Felder defeated Josh Berkman by unanimous decision. Uh, Good first round for Berkman, using his wrestling and whatnot. Getting the better of the striking, actually. I liked what I saw from Felder here in that he made some mid fight adjustments. He made Berkman. Berkman was getting tired. I think this weight cut is not good for him. To me, it just. It's the KJ Noon fight was the same way. It's like he seems to fade gradually as the fight wears on. His volume just depletes, round after round. I don't think it's because he's getting hit hard. I think it's just his weight cuts really draining his energy. Um, but yeah, Felder was back, taking more of the center of the cage. Um, what else was he doing? He was just finding his range better. Um, he actually did pretty well against the clinch, like with the clinch against the cage as well. So there were some mid-fight adjustments that I really liked from Felder here. Berkman, I mean, he's the savvy veteran of the division, but his only win lately has in the UFC has been against like KJ Noons. Um, it's not that great. I can see him losing more than winning in the UFC these days. Paul Felder, he's kind of stiff, He's still kind of a stiff fighter, especially when he punches. It seems like he puts a lot into his punches or something. But like he's still a guy on the up and up. He's fighting the appropriate level of competition. I think that both guys should just fight more lower to mid tier guys with the division. Okay, on to the FS1 prelims. Sarah McMahon defeated Jessica I by unanimous decision. Man, did I do a lot of nothing in this fight. I mean, the first round was pretty bad. The first two rounds were pretty bad. Once Sarah McMahon got that third round going and got that takedown, getting to ride, getting side mount and whatnot, she did some really good work. Some of the best work I've actually seen her do so far. And it's work that I wish she would do more of in the UFC. I mean, when you see her fight like Lauren Murphy, it's like takedown and like nothing. Just stay on top. Her striking still needs work. I think it's there, but like she whiffs a lot of punches. She doesn't. She still isn't too comfortable really getting inside that pocket, and it really shows. I think once she finds some level of comfort there, she'd actually be a pretty decent boxer, at least in relation to the division. She has a pretty strong right hand. But yeah, you know, a lot of fights, you can see it in the regional scene too. She gets takedowns and just does nothing when she gets on top. So I was really happy to see her in the third round. Once she got the dominant position, got the ride, you know, um, would get like side mount, even got kind of close to a north south choke. That's more of what I'd like to see from Sarah McMahon, because it's within her skill set to do that, to just float on top and stay in like different dominant positions while raining down a good amount of ground and pound. Because the rest of the fight wasn't very good. I just thought the third round was actually much better for McMahon, and she was actually landing some pretty good ground and pound and getting some good positions on the eye. I was probably gonna get cut from the UFC at this point. What is this, like 2 or 3 losses in a row? She'd probably be better fit in Invicta, and maybe she can find her way back into the UFC. Some of the problems with I guess, would be that she's a good boxer. She's not a particularly powerful boxer, though. She's not super heavy-handed or anything like that. Um, and she doesn't have the grappling. She doesn't really have a plan B. So that's kind of problems with I. McMahon, there's a lot of competition for her, actually. She can get, like, Raquel Pennington, who's on a win streak, the winner of Zingano versus Pena, Carmouche, who's coming off a win. Right? Yeah. And or the winner of Holm versus Shevchenko. It's a lot of good fights for Sarah McMahon that are very interesting. Um, kind of hope she gets a win streak going. I would actually like to see her, see her rematch. Misha Tate would be cool. Or just some of these. There's a lot of fresh matchups for her. She doesn't seem to fight a lot, so I'd like to see her fight more. She's a bit older too. Mid late 30s, something like that. Next fight after that, Abel Trujillo defeated Jordan Ronaldi by unanimous decision. This was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. Um, Good on Ronaldi, for doing as well as he did. Trujillo, like, at least he's aware of his cardio issues, and he was hitting Ronaldi, especially in the third, really hard. But yeah, this fight was pretty close. He's still the thing with Rio, he's still not great off his back. He's really strong though. He's a good wrestler and he hits hard, but he's getting tagged a good amount of times. There's some left hands from Rinaldi that really found their mark on Trujillo quite a bit. And then Rinaldi did actually manage to take Trujillo down as well. But, Trujillo managed to. Well, he is a harder hitter between the two as well. And, was able to sprawl against a lot of takedown attempts from Rinaldi. So, good for Trujillo. I don't think he'll be anything more than a fun action fighter if he isn't at that place already. Some more lower to mid guys of the division for both. So after that, Jake Collier defeated Alberto Uda by TKO in the second round. Good stuff from Uda or Collier, spinning back kicks to the body, which like started the finish. Um, yeah, like I said, pretty egregious pick here. Problem with the Uda is he is only looking to clinch. Doesn't have a range bot game. He doesn't really have much else except like a clinch game, and he aggressively goes for that clinch. He did well against Collier. He actually broke his nose. I thought that Udo might have been able to get the finish on Collier, but it just didn't happen. Collier, for all his faults, he's always pushing forward. He does fight at range and he wrestles pretty well. Um, he's gonna lose to guys like a Donnie Yang, who can just hit him really hard when he comes in, as Collier's coming in, among other fighters. But you know, Collier will win some and lose some. Uda, on the other hand, I don't know what to really make of him. I don't, like I said, he has like one aspect of his game that he tries to go for over and over again. And I don't know if that's gonna work. A lot of guys keep guys at range pretty well, and might even be able to take them down too. With that said, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for both. Try with that, Eric Koch defeated Shane Campbell by submission in the second round. Ugh, I. It's so funny in the predictions. Like I was ready to pick Eric Koch, and then I'm like, he's on a layoff. Campbell's getting better. Blah 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 blah. Let's pick Campbell instead. And Eric Koch just freaking. He got wobbled one time, but on the ground, man, he was way superior on the ground. Just way superior on the ground. Like Campbell's getting better on the ground. You can see it in fights against like Silverio and James Krause, where man he got his back taken quite a bit. But Eric Koch was just infinitely better there. Um, Really good on Eric Koch too. He was doing well in the stand up too, Eric Koch. But he had much better advantage on the ground and really capitalized on it. It's really tough to say how far Eric Koch goes in the division. I don't know if he's gonna be like a Dustin Poirier. Like, it seems like he could be there, and he does have a skill set that is somewhat similar to Dustin Poirier. Heck, he kind of looks like him too. So there's good. He could uh, conceivably reach that far. Um, if not, um, he's gonna probably top out. If not, he tops out as a fun action fighter at lightweight. Well, Shane Campbell was this like two losses in a row now. Yeah, he lost to James Krause in his last fight. Um, he beat Silverio and then he lost to McDessie before that. They might keep him, they might not. The thing with Campbell is, as tough as he is, he's just, he's at lightweight for one thing. He's at one of the deepest divisions out there. The guys he fights are gonna be pretty tough, pretty well rounded, um, pretty athletic. Because Shane Campbell's not very athletic. So if they keep him, cool. Just give him some lower to mid-tier guy of the division. He's a reliable fighter at least, as far as an action fighter goes. Eric Koch, just more like mid-level guys in the division for him. Got on to fight UFC Fight Pass prelims. Brian Caraway defeated Aljamain Sterling by split decision. I don't know why it was a split decision. I thought that it was pretty clear. Caraway rounds 2 and 3, Sterling round 1. I mean, some were arguing 10-8 round 1. I don't really see that being a 10-8 round. Um, Cool full Nelson from Sterling in that first round. Caraway looked really uncomfortable, but Caraway paid him back and took to his back quite a bit. Um, the thing with Caraway is that very few guys are going to beat him. It's just you need to fight like. If you ever seen Rafael Sancho fight Brian Caraway, you have to fight like that. You have to like keep him at range, beat him up on the feet, make sure you get your back away from the cage, and defend his takedowns. I mean, that's what you have to do. And Caraway is so dogged about getting takedowns. He is very good. I said in predictions, I'll say it here. I say it all the time with him. He is really good at completing takedowns against a cage. He's just so dogged about it. He'll go for the trip. He'll go for the single. He'll just try to take the back standing at times. Try and get that guillotine. He is so good at getting takedowns against the cage. He is not a great boxer, but he's just serviceable enough in the stand up, and he's always pushing forward. And then on top of that, he's got a really good chin. So it's like he's just really. He's going to be those guys. He's just like guy that's just super tough to deal with. That is super hard to look good against. It's almost like a gatekeeper, but like you have to think his grappling is more of an elite at an elite level. His wrestling and especially his overall grappling game, his ability to take the back and whatnot, it's pretty elite. Um, and yeah, a guy like Sterling is still really new. He's still really raw, and if I was Sterling, honestly, is he doesn't box. Like really, he doesn't box because if he did, he may have been able to keep Caraway at range better. If you're just doing a range kick game, you allowed a guy to get inside. Yes, Sterling was able to get the takedown in that first round, but the second or third, Caraway was able to just pin him off against the cage and, force that takedown and get it. And that's what happened. You know, that's, yeah, that's really the biggest problem with Sterling. He doesn't box, He needs to learn how to box. It's really as simple as that, I think. Um, Otherwise, still a great prospect. Took a round from Caraway and almost, put him in a really bad position, in a position that Caraway gets people in. But, he'll grow. He's still young. He fought like a top 10 guy, you know. I know Sterling was ahead of him in the rankings, but I don't really know why he was that high up there, to be honest with you. Like, what, beating Mizugaki, I guess? I guess does that. Um, Otherwise, Caraway should probably get like he can get Garbrandt, the winner of Lineker versus McDonald, or maybe the winner of Dillashaw versus Assange. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting with Caraway because he is kind of he's kind of like Misha Tate. Actually, now that I think about it, like it's kind of like Misha Tate in a sense, just stupid, dogged, tough. Not he's not stupid, but like he's just really dogged and tough. And resilient. You know, he's not the greatest striker, but he's an opportunistic grappler. I mean, and that's very much Misha Tate in a nutshell. I mean, opportunistic grappler. I mean, Misha Tate beat Julie Kedzie by an opportunistic armbar. She beat Holly Holm by an opportunistic takedowns and taking the back. Kelly's kind of the same way, just kind of opportunistic grappler. With Sterling, he should probably just get more, like, he needs more seasoning. He needs to just work on other skills. We know he's a great wrestler. We know he's a great grappler, great in transitions, good front choke, good back take. But there's still a lot of holes in his stand up that need fixing. I'd like to see him fight some lower to major guys and kind of work on that part of his game. And finally, Adam Milstead defeated Chris De La Rocha by TKO in the second round. I said this in the predictions, and it was true here. Adam Milstead's defense sucks. I mean, it's just he has some terrible defense. He reminds me of Todd Duffy. Honestly, he fights like Todd Duffy. Just blitzkrieg of offense, and just like not defensively sound at all. Um, And yeah, beat Chris De La Rocha, which is cool. Who is stupid, who's also just, I shouldn't say stupid tough. He's really tough, and he wouldn't actually go down. But dude, the guy was bleeding heavily and just getting battered. I thought it was a fine stoppage. But Mill said, he's a prospect. He's not Francis Ngannou, or even like a Curtis Blades. But he's a good prospect. He needs seasoning. Um, he is something of a pocket brawler, and that's fine for fun fights. But he's gonna get hit a lot. If he can rely on his wrestling, fix up his technical boxing, he could be something. He's still young, doesn't have a lot of fights. Especially for heavyweight to be in your 20s is young, and he doesn't even have 10 fights yet. So he has potential. That's the thing with Millstead. He's a guy with potential, but he could also just turn out to be like Todd Duffy. Just like can't just you just can't beat certain guys. With Chris De La Rocha, I guess they can keep him. It's, you know, uh, he didn't have much role in the UFC. He's a bit older. Didn't have a lot of fights. Very raw. But, maybe he can be some a fun action fighter. With Milstead, just more lower to mid-tier guys of the division for him. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC Fight Night 88. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please support me and my journey of being an author by buying my first novel, The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom, for $8.95 at www.chrismoldong.com or at amazon.com. So that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.